You can also visit our offices at 45 Moffat Avenue, Hillside, Malawi. Take advantage of this opportunity to expand your business.
Good morning and welcome to the Breakfast Club. My name is Lesley Moyo and this is Asake Online. Today on the show we are discussing the national dialogue that has been topical in Zimbabwe, and we are looking at it from the church's perspective. I'm joined in the studio by two eminent religious leaders from right here, Bulawayo. I have to my immediate right Dr. Ray Motsi, who is the president of the Zimbabwe Theological College, and to my left I have Reverend Hussein Swanda, who is the director of Zimbabwe Christian Alliance. And I'll just get straight to the topic of discussion for today, and I'll start with Dr. Motsi. Dr. Motsi, I want to find out from you, in general, what is the role of the church in Zimbabwe's politics?
Well, I think the role of the church in Zimbabwe, the role of the church in any country, not necessarily Zimbabwe, is to be the conscience of the nation, is to be able to be the light and the salt, and to be able to give wisdom and direction to the powers that be and the people in general.
Rev, do you also share the same sentiments?
Yes, definitely. I think that the role of the church is like what Dr. Motse said, but also I believe the church is there to raise leaders in our communities. The church is there also to be what we call a prophetic voice, that is to speak truth to power. And also the role of the church is always there to protect the most vulnerable members of our communities. We as churches work for the common good. We want all the time to say, how do we ensure that the most vulnerable people within the communities, these are your orphans, your widows, people who might not have economic means, how do we protect them? How do we ensure that government protects them? How do we ensure that children are protected? How do we ensure that women are protected? And those things, the church has to speak about those things once we feel that they are not protected. And also, like I said, I talked about the prophetic voice, but also the church is there to ensure that the nation is reconciled, healed. We are there to bring together different people from different backgrounds, different beliefs, different maybe abilities, and to ensure that everyone is accommodated.
Yeah, I think the church is one of those institutions that are key in a person's life. Obviously, we look at the family, there's also school, and you also mentioned how the different roles that the church has played. But I think from looking at it from a Zimbabwean perspective, and how the church has been involved in Zimbabwean politics dating back to, the liberation struggle, if I may refer to that period. And what would you say has been some of the key landmarks that the church has done, especially in bringing together the different political bodies, if I may use that word, in Zimbabwe?
Well, I think that if you look at the liberation struggle, the church was there in both Mozambique, Zambia, Botswana, to help people with food aid, with education, those that had moved out of the country. But the church also remained inside the country. We still continued with the mission schools. We still continued talking to different political players. We still continued to protect people, even during the time of the struggle, the liberation war. But also, if you realize it, most of the people that led the liberation struggle were actually produced by the churches. So we actually produced the leadership that led the liberation struggle. And also, if you look at history, the whole Lancaster House talks and dialogue, to a large extent, the churches were heavily involved in ensuring that it happens. And then afterwards, of course, we were involved in rebuilding this country. And that's why we have so many mission hospitals, we've got schools. You had the church playing a leading role in the development arena. You talk of boreholes, you talk of provision of health facilities, etc. You know, we had the church there, right there, doing all those things as the country, you know, post-independence. I'm sure Dr. Motsi might have one or two things to say as well around that issue.
You want to add, Doc?
No, I think he said enough about that.
But also maybe taking it from what the Reverend was saying, and we're looking at a lot of things that have happened, especially in our political sphere in the country, and so many conflicts have taken place. And what has the church done, especially to try and promote peace, healing, and reconciliation in the various communities in Zimbabwe?
I think first and foremost, it's important that we point out that the church is not an institution that is a standalone, that is out there on its own. The church is amongst the people. The church is very much part and parcel of the community. And a lot of these people who are both in political parties and in government are members of local congregations all over. And once you put that in perspective, it enables you to understand the effect of the church within the society and its influence amongst its people. And therefore, when you do that, you reiterate some of what Reverend Hussein was talking about in terms of people like Kenan Banana, people like Father Mukonori, people like Bishop Cullen here in Matabeleland, people like Archbishop Pius Ngube, and various other pastors and leaders within our congregations who have been actively involved in all sectors of the society, not in a specific one. Why? Because the church is everywhere. The church is not the building, but it's the Christians living amongst the community. And therefore, the reason why Zimbabwe is said to be 70% or 80% Christian is because of these influence and these people who adhere and subscribe to a Christian ethos because of their upbringing and because of their socialization in their lives. And therefore, in that way, when you consider that, you can begin to realize the important role that Christianity has played in shaping the communities and also the kind and characters of the people of Zimbabwe.
Okay, if you're just joining us, this is Asake Online. My name is Lesley Moyo, and this is the Breakfast Club. And we're discussing the role of the church, especially looking at national dialogue that a lot of people have been talking about quite recently. And in the studio, I have Dr. Ray Motsi. He is the president of the Zimbabwe Theological College, as well as the Reverend Hussein Swande, who's the director of Zimbabwe Christian Alliance. And the two gentlemen have been trying to talk about, in general, about what the role of the church has been in Zimbabwean politics. And we have seen since the last election, 30 July 2018 elections, that there was post-violence after the members of the opposition went on the streets and demonstrated to what they were saying is that they're not happy with the delay in the announcement of the election results. And we saw some of the people who died on the 1st of August. 6 people were killed by the army. And then fast forward to January 14, where the mass protests around the country, and human rights organizations say at least 17 people died. And soon after that, there has been talk of a national dialogue. And I want to pose a question to first to Dr. Motsi to say, what is this national dialogue that everyone is talking about?
Thank you very much. I think some of us who come from a peace building and conflict transformation perspective, right now we're not so sure as to what kind of animal they're talking about, because nobody has actually explained what it is that they're talking about. I think it's important to define our terms. They're not talking about mediation, neither are they talking about negotiations. And so what they are alluding to in general, because of the lack of evidence on the ground of what could be done, we could say they are basically talking about a conversation about our country. Now, the problem is who defines the topic, the agenda, the parameters, who is going to lead. If there's a problem between, say, the government and the opposition political parties, so who is the mediator? Who is the one who's going to help? Who is going to come up with the agenda of what needs to be discussed? These are problems that we are facing right now, and therefore the generality of Zimbabwe, in my opinion, is suffering from crisis of expectations, where because of our history and experience, every one of us has got all kinds of expectations, and we don't know what to do, and we're therefore believing that when the president called for dialogue, he is talking about what we have in our minds. But I think we need to wait and get a little bit of clarity from government in terms of what it is that they want to do and whether the opposition political party agrees. But nevertheless, having a conversation as a nation or a dialogue is a very positive thing, which might lead to negotiations or mediation or whatever else.
And Rev, where do you look at Zimbabwe's problem at the moment? Because I think Dr. Motse has tried to say a lot of people have different experiences, and therefore we are suffering from a crisis of expectations because we do not know what we want. And where would you locate our problem? Is it a political problem? Is it an economic problem? Or what is it?
I think it's a multi-layered problem that we have. When ZCTU, Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions, called for a stay away, in a sense, it's, maybe I would even say, go backwards a bit, when the medical doctors went on strike. And after the medical doctors, there was when you had the ZCTU call for a strike, and also you had teachers who also said will not go to work. Now, it shows you that at that level, there is a deep economic crisis that we have. An economic crisis that maybe is tied up to a despair. I think there was a lot of hope and expectations post the elections, post November 2017. Many people expected things to change overnight. So we have a crisis of expectations in terms of economic expectations. I think it was not just local people, but also when we said we are open for business, even businesses, international businesses, and everyone was saying, okay, we'll come in and invest in Zimbabwe. But as we speak now, the fuel prices have gone up, bread has gone up, basic commodities, our people are struggling to have 3 meals a day. Our people are struggling to get their kids to school. Our people are struggling to access medical health assistance or facilities. Right now, if you go to Mpilo, you'll not be able to get your drugs. If you go to Parenyato, if you go to UBH. Now, this is what people want. Someone is saying, I cannot, angikwanisi ukugada umtshova from eLuveve is a town. Angikwanisi ukugada umtshova ngisuke eChitungwisa ngifike eHarare. Kumbe ngisuke eMachobane ngiyefika eTown ngikade futhi ngiyefika eAscot ansakwanisi nxa ngisebenza eAscot. So this is a cry for help, I think, because abantu sebesehluleka. People are failing to get those basics. So now that is a very big problem, which means people are failing to get their economic needs met. But also I'll say there is a political crisis. There's a political crisis because our elections, when we came out from the elections, there is a dispute now. Now those disputes, we can go on and become ourselves as Zimbabweans, but then they translate into international concerns. And international concerns translate into Zimbabweans failing to get money from the IMFs, from your international financing institutions. because they think, this country is still not very stable. And what then that means is when you don't have money, you can't revive your industries. You can't have jobs. So it's a vicious cycle. And I think our conversations needs to deal with that cycle. To say, how then do we unlock ourselves out of this? How do we ensure that kids go to school, we have food on our tables, we can go on to public transport, we have petrol in our cars. How to ensure that we have bread in the morning, that no one is starving in Zimbabwe. So those are major issues for us. These are major ordinary people's concerns.
And what format should these conversations take so that at least, as the doctor alluded to, that they become all-inclusive?
Well, I think Dr. Mazul will add on that. But look, I think for me, our main concern, I'm coming from where we are, our main concern is the agenda must be set by ordinary people's concerns. That's why I've been talking about what ordinary people feel. It should not be political elites negotiating or sharing power. But it should be really what's bothering that widow, what's bothering orphans, what's bothering, our family Logichin, what's their problem? How do we help them? That's the basic thing. Yes, I don't know, Dr. Motsi might want to.
Yeah, I really think that there is need for a national convergence in terms of the crisis that Zimbabwe and Zimbabweans face. And this is not something that ZANU-PF alone is able to handle. This is not something that MDC alone is able to handle. This is not what government alone is able to handle. And therefore, if it is a conversation about the problems that we are facing as Zimbabweans, and government is saying we are in it together, we come together and talk about what's going in Zimbabwe and how best we can move together and solve our own problems as Zimbabweans, then that is a noble thing. But the problem that I think I see is that you see a situation where, for example, ZANU-PF and government continue to dig in their heels and say they are in control and therefore they are the only ones that know what should happen in Zimbabwe. I think that's problematic. Zimbabwe has been in the hands of ZANU-PF for the past 38 years. We are in this situation partly because ZANU-PF is in power. And the sooner every Zimbabwean recognizes that we have failed ourselves and we acknowledge that and begin to find a solution amongst ourselves, then we are able to move forward. But if we continue to point fingers at others as if we are the perfect guys, then we're not going to do anything. I think it's time for Zimbabweans to say, as Zimbabweans, let's put our heads together. Let's find our solutions to fix our problems.
Yeah.
Okay, you mentioned earlier on that the church has been an equal partner in terms of the political sphere in this country. Where would you place it in these conversations that we've been talking about?
Well, if you need conversations, obviously because the church is non-violent and it comes from a peace perspective, there are enough men and women within our ranks who can really be able to help the country, in bringing about people together, particularly those that come from political persuasions, so that it becomes a neutral platform for everybody. And this is a role that I think a church can play. But not only that, but I think also, instead of church joining with ZANU-PF or MDC, the church must also stand in the gap and pray for Zimbabwe. The church must be seen to be standing on behalf of God for the nation, where we can be able to help. And the Bible says, my people perish for lack of vision. How do we bring about that vision and help if we as a church are actually involved in politics and party politics? We have also exacerbated the polarization of the nation. So conversation, a dialogue, is something that, in our opinion as a church, is something that can bring about some semblance of unity, some semblance of unity of purpose, and how we can work together. Surely, I think that's the work of the church.
Yeah.
But Rev, some have gone to the extent of even accusing the church of involving themselves in party politics. Is that a true assessment?
Well, I think first remember what Dr. Moyo was saying, that who is defined as church. I think there are obviously individuals within the churches who might want to be active in partisan
right.
politics.
Yep.
You know, there's freedom. The Constitution allows them to do that. But I think the church corporately has always tried to be, I guess, to be as non-partisan as possible. And what that means is the church occupies a space where it allows everyone, whether you are from ZANU-PF, MDC, or whatever party you come from, there is space that the church has opened for people, for everyone to come. Now, remember, all these people come to the church on Sunday or Saturday. So we never, when you come to the church door, we don't ask you which party you belong to. But when you come to the church, it's neutral ground. It's there because people want spiritual upliftment. And that's what we provide. But however, the church will always fight for good governance. The church will always fight for peace and justice and common good for everyone. So sometimes when we come and begin to speak about those things, it's misinterpreted. Different lenses are put on it and maybe deliberately misinterpreted that we are now dabbling in partisan politics. But we are only partisan to justice. We are partisan to mess. We are partisan to common good. We will speak on those things. We will insist that let there be fairness, let there be justice, let there be good governance. Every human being is created in the image of God. And for us, when every human being has got a right to life, right to education, right to food, all those rights in our Bill of Rights, they are part of our biblical mandate that we fight for. So therefore, the church does not involve itself. If I'm talking about the church corporately, different church bodies not involve themselves in politics, but however, some individuals do. And that's their own personal, I think, private choices. I think that the other problem we have is a lot of politicians, when we hold them to account and begin to demand them to be accountable for their actions, they then begin to say the church is being partisan. But when we commend them and partner with them in other things, they don't say that. But the moment we begin to say to them, why are you doing this? They then counter-accuse us around partisan issues. So that's natural, is part of the dangers of the work. But I think we will continue to do what we've been called to do.
And these conversations, this national dialogue, as some people would want to call it, as the church, where do you want it to lead to? What is the end result of it? Is it a national transitional authority? Is it another GNU of some sort?
I think that what Dr. Moyo has explained. A national dialogue is not mediation. A national dialogue is a conversation around how do people want the country to move forward. I guess it even involves talking about our vision. As a country, what's our vision? As a country, what are our expectations in the economic field, what are our expectations around the political field, social issues. However, it's a pathway that could lead to dialogue, to mediation maybe, mediating different parties. But like we explained, I don't think it should be a political elite power sharing game. You remember during the Unity Accord, it ended up being a power sharing arrangement between PF ZAPU and ZANU-PF. It did not address issues that faced people. That's why up to today, this is 2019, we are still talking about Kukurahundi victims, survivors of Kukurahundi. We should not be talking about that. If the Unity Accord had not concentrated on power sharing and involved ordinary people from Matabeleland who were affected by Kukuraundi. But we're still talking about it now. Look at the GNU, the Global Political Agreement, became an arrangement between MDC and ZANU-PF. And up to now, we are still talking about 2008 electoral violence, victims, survivors, who are still very bitter that things have not been dealt with. You know, we never really dealt with issues. So this particular dialogue could lead to another political elite power sharing arrangement, which means it will not address ZCTU concerns, it will not address the workers' concerns, it will not address the teachers' concerns, it will not address the most vulnerable members of our community's concerns. And we as a church are saying, no, the agenda must be from the people. What do people want? If we are mediating, so it's not about having a transitional authority or a GNU. I think it's about how do we solve Zimbabwe's problems and what's the best mechanism or framework to do that. And that should come from the people.
Yeah. I think we need to add to that. The conversation or dialogue of Zimbabwe must be a dialogue that is based on the values that are enshrined within our Bill of Rights, that are enshrined within our Constitution, and the values that the whole of Zimbabwe espouse as basis of who we are. We need to find a way in which we can all begin to identify with this country as Zimbabweans, and apart from that, we also need a sense of belonging. And thirdly, we need to talk about not only state security, but personal security of persons who are Zimbabweans all over the place. Because you cannot put state security at the expense of personal security, such that people feel stateless and nationless, and they would rather leave Zimbabwe because people are terrorizing other people. And I think these are conversations which are enshrined within our Constitution, and therefore Zimbabweans must talk about their Constitution. Can you believe it? We had a new Constitution way back in 2013, and they're only talking about changing POSA now. There are many other restrictive laws. There are many other alignment of laws that needs to come to be done and put alongside or in line with what our Constitution say. These are serious major national issues that involve all Zimbabweans. It's not a ZANU-PF thing. Please, it is not a ZANU-PF thing. ZANU-PF does not have the mandate to actually do that. It is Parliament and the people of Zimbabwe.
Yeah. Well, also, I think another key issue, maybe like what Dr. Motz is saying, we had the Constitution in 2013. We have not realigned our laws. There are more than 400 laws that still need realignment, but also institutional reform. We are in this mess because we have not reformed our institutions. According to the Constitution, we are not even asking for anything outside the Constitution. We're saying, let's work according to the Constitution. How is the security sector supposed to operate according to a Zimbabwean Constitution, not according to a British demands or American demands? We are just saying, we agreed on a Constitution, all of us.
Yes.
It's a social contract between us and those that govern us, between us and the Parliament of Zimbabwe, between us and our judiciary. So let us reform our institution. How is our judiciary supposed to operate? How is our financial sector supposed to operate? According to the Constitution. Dr. Mott is talking about human security of each Zimbabwean. It's there in the Constitution. We have the right to be protected by the state. No one is supposed to be harassed by anyone. It's there. So what we are asking for as Zimbabweans is not anything outside our Constitution. We are just saying to everyone, let's go to the Constitution, which we all worked for and agreed on 2013 and signed into law. And let's stick to it. Once we stick to that, we've solved our problem.
I need to add this as an example of my concern for security. If we have an army and we have CIOs and we have the police who are supposed to look after us as Zimbabweans, but those people come on public media and confess that they are ordinary Zimbabweans who are going into the military and armories, and they're able to take weapons and uniforms, and they're going to go on the street. What about my security then? If they're doing that with the army, and the government is actually confessing that they've lost the plot, basically, that's what they're confessing to me as an ordinary Zimbabwean. Zimbabwe's government has lost the plot. They cannot protect me, because if ordinary Zimbabweans can go into the military and get weapons and begin to use them in the street, then there is lawlessness, there is a problem. Yeah. They said it, government said it.
And as a parting shot, what would you say is, because it seems like to me it's more of a political problem than anything else.
It is both. It is both, but guess what? It is a political problem, but those people that are in politics, we put them there in the place. So you can't fold our hands and say it's a political problem, therefore they are actually going to do it. We need to tell them what we want. Every Zimbabwean needs to tell them what he or she wants to be done. ZANU-PF, MDC are not our masters. They are our servants. We gave them a mandate. They have got a time limit. Their powers are controlled by the Constitution. The people who have the right, and that right is eternal until we leave this, are Zimbabweans. Zimbabweans must know that.
But Rev, I saw even people saying that they're exercising their constitutional rights by taking to the streets to express their disgruntlement. And we see the army reacting by using brute force. How then do we get to that level where we get to have our rights respected as Zimbabweans?
Yeah, well, first, we don't condone any violence in any nature, whether it's civilians or the army.
Exactly.
We don't condone that. That is wrong. You have to exercise your constitutional right within the confines of the Constitution. Like if it's your right to demonstrate, there is no reason for you to loot or burn. It's not necessary. While it's also for our security forces, when they are beginning to deal with public riots, public disturbances, there is no reason for them to use live ammunition. There are methods that are known that could be used by the police or riot police to actually ensure that there is peace. They could use means to quell violence in a manner that will protect also those civilians to utilize their rights to demonstrate. So I think it's a balance we should have. I think the key issue is government must create space for people to demonstrate, for instance. We've seen that in other countries. In France right now, there are massive demonstrations that are going on. No one is being shot in the streets. In other words, there are methods that could be used that allow people to demonstrate without also infringing on other people's rights. So I think we need to educate everyone to that level as Zimbabweans. But also, I think we need to deal with the issues that are causing concern. And so that's very major. So anyway, as a parting shot, I think let's work on the Constitution. Let's ensure we follow it. Let's ensure we have institutional reform. Let's work for common good for everyone. I think that is very important. And our national dialogue must be shaped by the people's own agenda and issues that concern ordinary people, and not political elites wanting to share power.
I think it is a great concern for us as church to observe what happened with utter disgust. What happened in January during the stay away, that ordinary Zimbabweans would go to ordinary Zimbabwean properties and trash them because of anger. Now, if some of us who have been around for a bit and been ministers for over 30 years, this is the first time we have seen ordinary Zimbabweans get on the street and behave in the manner in which they behaved. I am very surprised and worried about such behavior. If we do not do something about that as a nation, we are heading for major, major disaster. And not only that, like Reverend Hussein said, there are basic reasons When you have young men and young women who wake up in the morning and by 7:30 they are already having a scud and bronco on the street and they can't go to work. There's a crisis in the country. And we need to recognize that. Young people have no jobs. If you have got unemployment of 85, 90%, it is a problem. And these are the crises that we need to acknowledge. That's where we fail. We need to acknowledge that. And that needs to be addressed. You do not address it by killing people. That is not the answer. And therefore, I think there's a way in which we need to question what is going on. Now, I can say this, Mugabe was killing people. Now we have Mnangagwa, he is killing people. It never solved the problem. In actual fact, it worsened the situation. So how can you continue to do the same, to try and solve a problem in the same way which has failed and still expect a different answer? That's lunacy. It doesn't work. And therefore, the calling for a conversational dialogue probably is a good thing. So we have a problem, Zimbabweans. How do we help? And this problem must also include, in my opinion, it must include the people in the diaspora. They have as much a stake in Zimbabwe as everybody else who is here. They are there again because of the crisis in the country. If we fail to recognize that and we limit this to us, it's no different from ZANU-PF and ZAPU saying they are the only ones that went to war, and therefore everybody else who is Zimbabwean who did not go to war is not important. It will not help us in resolving our problems. I think the conversation, the coming together of the nation is important. NgesiNdebele sifuna ithuba elokuthi abantu baphose amaceba.
Thank you so much. I think one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible says that where there is unity, God commands a blessing.
Exactly.
And hope that we'll see that happening in Zimbabwe soon. Thank you so much for tuning into the Breakfast Club with such an interesting conversation, and the conversation will continue. Stay tuned on to Asake Online. You can follow us on Facebook. Our Facebook page is Center for Innovation and Technology. You also find us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @SiteZW. Let's meet again in another program.
Thank you.
The cyberspace is home to billions of people and is the right platform you need to grow your business. The Center for Innovation and Technology is offering you a golden opportunity to speak directly to your market at an affordable price. We also offer media training workshops, live streaming, documentary production, and events management. Get in touch with us today on the following numbers: +263 867 711 0290 or 0718 100 235. Don't forget to subscribe to our social media platforms. Like our Facebook page, Center for Innovation and Technology. Follow us on Twitter @SiteZW. And you can also check out our website www.site.org.zw. You can also visit our offices at 45 Moffat Avenue, Hillside, Malawi. Take advantage of this opportunity to expand your business.